Hey world, it's being really come back to another video. Fam, I want to come back to this video because I don't know how many of you guys are sports fans. The Olympic trials just ended. We have all our athletes going over to Japan for the Olympic trials. And there was a story where one of the athletes chose to protest during the national anthem. And she's been receiving a lot of flack from a lot of the fake media and saying that she's not patriotic and why is she doing this when Nike is sponsoring her and this, that, and the third, right? And this goes all the way back to Colin Kaepernick. And I did a video about this a while ago about Colin Kaepernick protesting. And to me, if you're going to protest for something, then I think you should be more transparent in letting people know why you protest, right? Now, the national anthem. I mean, people have been protesting the national anthem for many, many years. I mean, if you go back to the 60s where the Olympians held their fist up with a black glove on their fist. And that was during the national anthem. A lot of Afro-melanated people don't even understand why they protested during the national anthem, right? Even now when Colin Kaepernick did it, or when a lot of these NFL players were kneeling during the national anthem, and this last Olympic athlete, when she turned her back during the national anthem. And so she received all this flack, right? But no one, when they protest, I think it's important to be, have some content on why you protest. Let the people know why you protest. And then that'll give individuals an opportunity to say, okay, well, you know what? I can dig that. I see why she protests. Or I can see why Afro-melanated people protest the national anthem. And the reason why is because I'm going to give you a historical analysis of the national anthem. Okay. The national anthem was written, it was actually a poem written by a guy named Francis Drake Key, or Francis Key, right? He was a guy that was on the British ships during the 1812 war when the United States, not the United States, but when the British people that came over to the United States to gain their independence, allegedly, wanted to fight against the British. Well, this guy was on a British ship. And he was actually more like a spy because he didn't let the British Navy know that he was actually against the British. Now, what happened in 1812, there was this, the British had attacked this fort. And when they attacked this fort, apparently the Americans allegedly won this particular battle, where the United States flag was flying after this particular battle. And this guy, Francis Key, he wrote a poem. And this poem was actually adopted as the national anthem by, I think the first president that adopted it was President Hoover. I think it didn't become the national anthem, family, until 1931, okay? 1812 is when he actually wrote it. Right? And so when you go back and look at the original poem for the national anthem, it has some words in it. And these words actually was words that indicated that this guy was against black people. Why would he be against black people? Because the British, right, they encourage Afro-melanated people to run away from the plantations and join the British Navy. And all those Afro-melanated people that ran away from being slaves actually joined the British Navy. In return, they would have land, freedom, right? And would not ever have to be considered a slave. If you know about the particular Virgin Islands, Trinidad and Tobago, these were the lands that the descendants that ran away from the plantations, right? They joined the British Navy to fight against the Americans. And after doing that, they received their freedom and they received land for them and their families. Well, Francis Key wrote this poem because he despised those Afro-melanated people that ran away. And there was a stanza in the poem that read, "No refuge could save the hireling and slave." Hireling is basically a slave, those that work, work for money, and then a slave. So let me repeat. In this poem, it said, "No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave." Now that is hypocrisy in itself, because land of the free, how is it the land of the free when you so-called enslaving black people? Okay? And these same quote-unquote black people, a lot of them escaped from the plantations and joined the British Navy to fight against the so-called Americans in the War of 1812, right? And Francis Scott Key, who wrote this poem, he actually was an attorney in the presidential, he was part of the presidential staff. And he was against all abolitionists. So that means any so-called Caucasians that were abolitionists, that was against slavery, he made it hard for them. He actually brought charges against abolitionists. His brother-in-law was the lawyer that was over the Dred Scott decision. And what's the Dred Scott decision? The Dred Scott decision was a decision in the judicial system that made sure that if you were a black man and you was a free black man, no white man had to honor that. They didn't have to honor your freedom. That was the Dred Scott decision. And Francis Scott Key, the person that wrote the so-called national anthem, it was actually a poem. His brother-in-law was over the Dred Scott decision. So we know that these individuals, Francis Scott Key, as well as his brother-in-law, were basically pro-slavery guys. And so when these people protest the national anthem, I can see why they do it, because it was a poem written by someone who was against black people and against actually pro-slavery. You dig? And the United States adopted this poem as the national anthem in 1929. Matter of fact, all of the armed forces used this national anthem as they cry for freedom, as their poem, their fighting song. It actually became the national anthem of the United States in 1931. So I can see why, and that's why they changed it. It didn't become the national anthem for 100 years later. You did? So when you see these people kneeling for the national anthem or, protesting the national anthem, the reason why they protesting because they actually know the history of the national anthem, which was a poem written by Francis Scott Key, all right, who actually, and let me repeat it, no refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. So all those so-called slaves that escaped, he was hoping that, you know what, you're not going to escape the grave for leaving us as slaves. Okay? I just want to come back with a food for thought, family, because so many times, history is not taught in school. And I can understand it. I mean, this is America, right? And if you had a group of people that was enslaved for 400 years and you never ever gave them reparations, you never ever acknowledged that what you done was wrong, but the only thing you've done was gave them holidays, MLK Day, Juneteenth Day. Come on now. And this year's Olympics is in Tokyo, Japan, which I think is so ironic because the Japanese was placed in entrenchment camps during World War II because of Pearl Harbor, right? And so the person that was protesting the national anthem, the young lady that protested the national anthem, she was protesting it while going to Japan, which these Japanese people was actually placed in entrenchment camps during World War II. And to this day, a lot of Japanese receive reparations for that act that happened only a couple of years. But where are the reparations for those that were quote unquote enslaved for 400 years? And then when they protest a national anthem that was written as a poem by a slave owner, why wouldn't they protest? But you have to be transparent and get the people the information. See, they took that out of the national anthem. That stanza about no refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. I see why they took that out. But it's still something written by a slave owner. Okay? So I just wanted to give you guys some information, give you a historical analysis of the national anthem. And if you want to protest for it, remember, that's the First Amendment. You have the right to protest. You have the freedom of speech. You have the freedom to protest, freedom of religion. So if this person can do that under the constitutional right, why is there a problem? This is being Willie. May the Most High Saudi bring you joy. Okay? And being Willie is 95,000.